Hi, acugynecology patients, acupuncture friends, endo warriors. It is Dr. Stephanie here again, and I just wanted to talk to everyone right now about winter and the upcoming winter solstice and a little bit about preparing for winter. I'm also doing a podcast next week with my colleague, Dr. Balco, where we will talk about this much more extended and in a lot more detail than I'm going to right now. So this is just a little quick intro. So a little bit of this you might hear again, but like I said, we will definitely go into this more next week in the Practical Medicine podcast. So I'm going to share a poem, and you will hear this again in the podcast, so I apologize ahead of time. I just love it, and every winter solstice, I think of this poem. I watched my little cousin's son for a while, and he used to watch Maurice Sendak's Little Bear. And they had this winter solstice episode, and they said this poem. So this is a little bit more of the poem. And Maurice Sendak is the author who wrote Where the Wild Things Are, and I feel like that's mostly what he's known for. But Maurice Sendak's Little Bear was just such a cute show, and my cousin's son used to watch it, and I babysat him for that period of time. So they had this winter solstice episode, and again, this is an extended version, but the poem went, whether the weather be fine, or whether the weather be not, whether the weather be cold, or whether the weather be hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. Now, the poem itself was not written by Maurice Sendak. I looked into it, and all I could find was that it's anonymous, so I don't know the origin of that poem, but they did use it on that show, Little Bear. So in New Jersey, where we experience a range of the seasons, where we have a fall, we have a winter, we have a spring, we have a summer, we need to be mindful here of how the weather changes. So I talked a little bit about the autumn changes and how we need to be mindful of carrying an extra sweater with us. We need to be even more careful now. So now shifts into that time where you may have one warm day and you get caught out in the cold, because it may be warm at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but by 4 o'clock when the sun starts setting, it's going to be cold. So making sure that you have an extra coat with you, a sweater to put under your coat, making sure you have that scarf to wrap up your neck, and then things like having mittens or gloves. And I say mittens first because I wear mittens. I'm more comfortable with mittens on than I am with gloves, and I get teased a little bit about it, but I do so love my mittens. And yes, I even drive the manual transmission on my Beetle with said mittens on. In fact, my mittens are the same color as my red Beetle. So keeping mittens, making sure that you have proper footwear on. I know I tend to like to extend the amount of time that I wear my flip-flops. Having cold feet really isn't good. It takes your body a longer amount of time to warm up when you do things like that. Keeping teas that are a little bit more warming and sipping on those. I have these microwavables that I use. They're both sheep. One goes around my neck and one is around my belly. But a lot of times I will microwave my microwavable sheep and put those on my feet to warm them up if I'm having trouble getting my feet to warm up. Being mindful that if you're not someone who is constitutionally overly heated, like say someone who's going through menopause and having hot flashes, watching what foods that you're eating, not having too many cold salads. Switch from having salads to having your vegetables warm, so that you're having soups and you're having cooked veggies and not so much raw cold food, that then it's one more element that your body has to try to keep warm. We just had congee the other day, just a basic congee where I use sushi rice, but you can use any kind of long grain white rice. And I did 1 cup of rice to 7.5 cups of a mix of chicken broth and water. And then I just threw in some carrots and celery. You can throw in a little bit of chicken, like you could throw a couple chicken legs in there that are uncooked. I did it in my Instapot. It was ready in 30 minutes, nice and thick. It's like a thicker kind of, I almost describe it as porridge, and it sticks to your bones. It has a very filling consistency to it, and you're not hungry 5 minutes later. And I will share my recipe in my blog that I use of, the basic of congee and things that you can add to it. And again, we'll talk about that more on the podcast next week. I also want you to be mindful of what supplements you're taking. Seek out your healthcare practitioner to see if there's anything you should add to your regimen. I have certain supplements that I keep on hand here that I want my patients to have in their medicine cabinet. They're not drugs, but they're just, different formulas that I prescribe that I wouldn't say to someone, go and get this on Amazon, because you want to make sure that it's a formula that is for you, that you would be safe taking, because you don't know what combinations of herbs are in there, and your constitution may require a different formula. But I do have certain basics that I have in my cold care kit that I give to patients. So just wanted to reach out to tell everybody to tune in next week when we talk a little bit more about how to stay healthy this winter. The podcast may end up being a couple of episodes because there is a lot of content, and there are some things that may need to carry over, and we don't want to overwhelm everyone by making the podcast go on and on too long. So, and check back here. I'll probably do these are a few of my favorite things video, so you can see some of the favorite things that I have for the holidays that make great gifts. And I wanted to share those with you. So I will see you soon. Thanks for stopping by. And I hope you tune in on Facebook to see the podcast. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Natural Alternative Center. On Facebook, it's Natural Alternative Center for Wellness. The podcast page is the Practical Medicine Podcast page on Facebook. And the Instagram is also the Practical Medicine Podcast, just at Practical Medicine Podcast. So check all these things out. I try and share fun and enlightening content, hopefully make people laugh at times. And I just want you guys to be well. So check out my website, naturalalternativecenterforwellness.com. And I'm still taking appointments before the end of the year. I am accepting new patients, so feel free to check it out. You can schedule for acupuncture or hypnosomatic acupuncture, or you can do virtual hypnosis if you're not ready to come back to the office. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for stopping by.